On August 17th, the way we transact real estate throughout the United States changes for good. On August 17th, the real estate business as we know it is not going to be as usual, far from it. But here's the thing, whether you're a home seller, a home buyer, a real estate agent, or a realtor, we're all in this together and we're going to figure it out over the course of time. I've spent over 45 hours in training from the National Association of Realtors, my local MLS, as well as my brokerage, trying to understand and how to implement new ways to transact with consumers. And that's what I'm here to talk with you about today. So a lot of folks say it's only going to take a few months for all of us to get used to this. I disagree. It's going to take a long time. It's change, and change takes a while. You see, the real estate industry is doing one thing. It's now becoming more consumer-centric. That's for you, and that's a great thing. But here's my overarching theme about what's happening. No buyer consumer is going to be able to go out with their buyer's agent and just look at property without signing a buyer-broker agreement. That won't happen. So if you don't want to sign it with me and you can sidestep this process and go to somebody else, they're going to make you do the same thing. Why? Because this is now law. This is the way we now are going to be regulated in the real estate industry. So think about it this way. So when a listing agent sits down with a home seller who wants to sell their home, there's a presentation. The agent talks about what they plan on doing for marketing, where they're marketing it. They talk about the competitive market analysis, the CMA, and a whole handful of things. And they also talk about the compensation, what it's going to cost the listing owner to list their property with that agent. That's customary. They sign a contract and it's done. For buyers in this real estate market, that's never been the process. But on August 17th, that's going to change. Now buyers are going to see their agents, sit down with them, review a whole list of services that they're going to provide for them, what they plan on doing, how many properties you want to see, and they're also going to sit down and talk about the compensation, what the buyer agent plans to charge the buyer for going out and doing all this work for them. It's all about establishing a relationship, and that's the big thing that's going to change August 17th. Before I continue any further, hey, let me introduce myself. I'm John Whelan, Mr. Downtown Delray with EXP Realty, and you know what? I live here in Delray Beach. I'm in my backyard right now doing this video because it's a beautiful summer afternoon in 2024. Do me a quick favor. Down below, would you please hit that bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out, and subscribe, because this type of content is what I'm passionate about. I love getting you useful, valuable information on a weekly basis. So do me a favor, just hit that button. So back to this relationship and buyer-broker agreement thing. So here it is. So you don't need to sit down with your agent and sign an exclusive representation agreement right off the bat. As a matter of fact, I advise against that. You can sign a non-exclusive agent agreement. What that'll do is allow you time to get to know, like, and trust this agent. If you know them and like them, most likely you're going to trust them or not. But at that point, then you might want to consider using an exclusive buyer-agent agreement with that agency. That'll firm your relationship. And here's the kicker. Buyers will now be able to choose how they want to work with their agent. So when you sit down with your agent, the agent will now be able to offer you a list of services that they're going to provide for the compensation that you're going to pay them. So what's going to be new for buyer agents with their buyers is the conversation about the money, about compensation and how money flows in a real estate transaction. Buyer agents have never had to do this in the past unless that was in a state where they required buyer-broker agreements, but in most states that was not the case. So there's going to be things like compensation and concessions. Yeah, you can ask for concessions or compensation when you put an offer into the seller. But here's the thing, sellers don't have to offer anything or stipulate they're going to provide anything to a buyer agent. So sitting down with your buyer and really understanding the flow of money and the conversation of money and how it's going to work, we're going to get more into that in just a few minutes. So think about it this way. Think of yourself as a homeowner for a second. Now remember, this is all about negotiating 101. Both with buyers and sellers, real estate agents are going to negotiate their compensation and what they get for that compensation with each consumer. Negotiating 101. But from a seller's perspective, think about this. Why would a seller advertise in advance for the things they're willing to do without first getting an offer from a buyer? That's the new world. They're not going to do that. In today's world, that happens. Listing agent sits down and gets a listing agreement signed, and that's the commission that's going to be paid to this listing agent and the buying agent. That's offering up something before it's been negotiated. It doesn't make any sense. In this consumer-centric world and process, it's going to make a lot more sense and better for all consumers. But here it is for you buyers as well. The days of you calling an agent and saying, hey, I want to go out and see this property and that property and these 3 other properties and go tour me all around town without expecting an agreement in place first, those days are over. The law will no longer allow that to happen. The buyer agent's going to say, stop. I'll take you to go see this property or those properties, but first you have to understand what my services are and how I'm going to get compensated for those. So in this new world on August 17th, the way that buyers work with their buyer agent is going to work like this. It's really just, it comes down to what services are you going to get for compensation. And that could look like this. It could be an a la carte menu. If you want to get this, this, and this, it's that price or this percentage. If you want to get full service like you have over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years, it's going to be a certain percentage. So you're going to pre-negotiate what services you, the consumer, want from your agent, and then negotiate that price or that percentage. It's the same way it is with listing agents and home sellers. The listing agent sits down with a home seller and says, hey, I've got a bronze package, I have a silver package, and I have a gold package. This one will cost you 4.5%, this will cost you 5.5%, and this will cost you 6%. And then you get those various services for those different levels. It's all going to be the same, but now it's going to be happening with buyers and the buyer agent. So for you buyers, it comes down to this. What are the list of services that you're going to sign with your buyer agent for their services? And it could be full representation like it always has been for a certain percentage in compensation. You could opt out for a lot of things if you're being offered a menu of items. For example, let's say you don't want the full representation. You just want to have the buyer agent, your buyer agent, just do the negotiations for you. That's fine. That'll be a certain compensation. But then you're going to miss out on certain things like, oh, but I need a handyman. Okay, well, that's going to cost you this. Or I need a list of inspectors to do the inspection. Well, you didn't sign up for that, so you're not going to get those. It's just like if you go into a restaurant, they have 500 things on the items. You normally get 1, 2, or 3, but not the whole thing, right? And you pay for those individually. Think about this as well. If you decide not to get buyer representation and go direct to the seller and the listing agent, you might be staring down the eyeballs of a seasoned, skilled listing agent, and you are at a disadvantage. You might go back to your buyer agent and say, you know what, I don't like this. I want full representation, and let's negotiate a price for that. See, there's options. It's all about level of service. Another way to think about it is this. United States is a high service society. We spend a lot of money on having food delivered to us than we do on just the food itself. We expect a lot of service from people for what we think we pay for them. Think about tips. They used to be 15%, now they're 24%. We expect service and we pay for it. But here's the thing, lots of buyers don't want to sift through Zillow and all these portals and look for property. They want their agent to do that. Otherwise, a lot of other people call me and say, hey, I want to see these 4 properties. I've been looking at hundreds of them for weeks. So each buyer has different levels of service they want. So they're going to be willing to pay for certain things and they don't want to pay for other things. It's not one size fits all. So in this new centric world, negotiating is going to become a normal part of the way we do business. The buyer and buyer agent, home seller, and the listing agent, we're all going to be able to negotiate services and compensation individually. Think about this. So no longer is the seller going to be offering compensation to a buyer's agent in the MLS. That's gone on August 17th. Instead, the buyer and the buyer broker are going to agree upon a certain level of services and compensation between the two of them. Then they're going to take that information and provide it in the purchase agreement when they make an offer to the seller. It'll be a part of the purchase agreement and the price so that the seller and buyer can negotiate directly. So in this manner, the principals or the consumers get to negotiate the terms of the contract and how the compensation fits into the contract. This is what they call being consumer-centric, and no longer will be the days of how broker sharing plays a part of any contract. That's over. So here's what a conversation might look like starting August 17th between the buyer broker and the buyer directly. So the buyer is going to call the buyer and say, Hi buyer, so I only work with written agreements, and any agent who works within the National Association Code of Ethics is going to make you also sign an agreement before we go out and see any properties. There's going to be no difference, and if they don't do that, they're going to be violating strict laws and rules that are here now governed to protect you, the consumer. So dear buyer, so take a look at this. Here is my non-exclusive agreement. If you want to sign an exclusive, that's fine, but my non-exclusive allows you time to get to know me, like me, and see how we work together. Fair enough? Great. So here is the list of services that I'll provide for you for the whole purchase process. Here's the compensation that and my fees I plan to charge for that. And then what we'll do is when you find a property you like, we're going to put that information into the offer that we present to the seller. We're going to take that offer and request that in every offer that we place on any property that you want to buy. So the cool thing is this, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is that I don't care what the listing agent and seller have agreed to in terms of what concessions they're willing to pay or any compensation they're willing to pay. It doesn't matter to me, because what you and I are going to do, we're going to sit down and write up this offer that's going to include my compensation. So it's going to be bundled as a package, and we're going to present that to the listing agent and seller. And guess what? It's now time to negotiate. They'll be able to negotiate the entire package, and that obviously has a compensation component in it for the buyer's broker. Why? Because we made the agreement, and that's the offer that you, the buyer, is presenting to the other principal, the seller. Sounds pretty nice. Here's where it might get interesting, because we have done our job. I, working with you, the buyer, have done our job and explained to you exactly how the services work, the compensation, the process, everything. We've made that agreement. Now, hopefully, when we present that offer to the seller, that the listing agent has also properly informed their seller exactly how the flow of money, how the money works in the transaction. Because if they've done a good job and we've done a good job, now all consumers happy and everything works fine. Now here's a word of caution, or maybe even a little bit of advice to you as we start this on August 17th. Don't allow any real estate agent out there to stick you with an exclusive buyer-broker agreement right away. That is not mandatory. You don't have to sign that. Ask them if they have a non-exclusive, because you want to get to know, like, and then finally trust them and build a relationship. Don't allow that. Be smart, understand the process. If you have any questions, my phone number is down below. Give me a phone call. We will walk through this step by step, because guess what? This is all about getting you the right representation. Now, so far, I hope you understand that the entire consumer-centric model, this entire new model that's rolling out, is really geared toward you, the consumer, you, the seller, you, the buyer. It's not focused on the agents. We're going to be fine, because the way the representation is going to work out, this is a service-related business. It's our job now to offer you services and for you to make the decision and then come up with a fair fee and compensation to pay for those services. So that was a lot of information about what's happening August 17th and the buyer-broker agreement. It's going to affect everybody. Sellers, buyers, listing agents, brokers, brokerages, we're all in this together. We're going to fumble, we're going to make mistakes, but have patience. We'll get through it. No one's going to go in the wrong direction. When you work with me and most agents, I hope, you're going to get a list of services. We're going to negotiate. We're going to have all expectations up front, fully transparent. Do me a favor, down below is my social media accounts. Follow me there, because on a daily basis I'm giving little tips and ideas of what we think is going to happen start August 17th. Just little blurbs. Oh, it's only going to be information that's going to help you. Also in my free weekly e-letter, if you want to be a part of that, sign up below. It's free. I'll get you into my database. I send it out every Wednesday. I've been writing about this ad nauseum for the last 5 months. Ever since the NAR settled about this issue back in March of this year, I've gone into over 45 hours of training. My job is to ensure that you go through the buying process in a good fashion. So give me a call if you're thinking about selling or buying here in the Delray Beach area. I would love to work with you. I'd love to establish a non-exclusive relationship with you that we ultimately build into something bigger, and hopefully we'll become friends. This is all about you. We're going consumer-centric starting October 17th.